Apex Online Racing is sponsored by Elgato, who created this lovely Stream Deck. For more information about the Stream Deck, the link is in the description below.
Good evening everybody and welcome back to round number 2 of the AOR Hype Energy PS4 F1 League. Tonight our esteemed grid of drivers will be tackling the Bahrain International Circuit, one they should all know very well following their evaluation races around this track and the fact that the track's been a fixture on the Formula 1 calendar since 2004. Last time out in Australia it was VGIA Michael who stormed to victory with an imperious drive, followed by Williams Alex and Ollie D who came all the way back from 11th on the grid. If last week is anything to go by, we should be in for another absolute cracker this evening. I'm Ali Kid, and joining me in the commentary box once again is Gaming Alimonda.
Hey everybody, and thanks for bringing me once again, Ali Kids. Well, this is a very different track to the street leg of Australia. Nice, friendly runoff areas everywhere, and we're going to get plenty of action down the two DRS zones, especially the main straight.
Plenty of action to say the least. I have to say Bahrain is probably one of my favourite places on the calendar to watch league racing, simply because there are so many places to overtake. We often see some crazy races with 3, 4 wide, and as well as that, the strategy today is incredibly finely poised even between the 1 and 2 stop. We could have huge strategic variation here.
Yes. Compared to Australia, tyre wear traditionally very severe here in Bahrain, as it was the case on the previous 2016 and 2017 games by Codemasters, and 2018 no different, very severe tyre wear, so I would suspect we'll get quite a mix of strategies selected for qualifying.
Taking a quick look at the track, we have 2 DRS zones and they lead to major overtaking opportunities into turns 1 and turn 11, but they are not the only opportunities you get across this lap. You get big opportunities down into turns 4 and the final corner as well, because there are so many heavy braking zones. You can overtake almost anywhere around this track, and because of that we get some absolutely crazy races. So let's get into qualifying then. We are expecting the pole time to be probably around mid-25s. If everyone goes on super softs, it's going to be mid-25s, but we could see a pretty big split in tyre choice here.
Yes, absolutely. As I mentioned earlier, the tyre wear quite severe here, so it'll be a brave man to go on the super softs, because that will mean a very long second stint on the medium compound. Compared to previous games, the two-stop strategy not quite as strong here anymore, so I think most of the drivers will be looking to do a one-stop strategy, whether that be on the super softs and the mediums, or to start on the soft tyre and do a lesson on the mediums. Maybe even a few drivers might attempt to do the type of medium strategy we saw in the AOR Oceania races earlier in the day.
Yeah, as we've already said, there could be huge strategic variation, but you can see already Michael, the winner from last time out in Australia, has gone straight out and banged in a 25.9 straight off the bat on a set of super soft tyres, so he is already committing to that super soft strategy, which you have to say is a pretty bold move.
It is a bold move, but when you've got 25 points in the bag like he got last week, perhaps he's got slightly less to lose to go on the alternate strategy, but maybe he's figured out a way of, saving tyres. Because, if you start on the super softs here, you're going to have to tyre save a little bit in the first stint. You've got to get those tyres to at least, lap 7, lap 8, something like that. Otherwise, you're going to be really struggling for wear at the end of the race on the mediums.
Yeah, this track really does eat the rear tyres. It is ridiculous how high the tyre wear is around here. We've seen in countless league races in the past so many people getting punctures. I remember, I think it was Flying Finn who got one in the Xbox League back in season 13, and I think he had them in consecutive seasons as well, if I remember correctly, which is bad luck to say the least, and I have a feeling we may see some more of that tonight, as Deagle Killer actually just goes pole position and he takes it from Michael, and I think Deagle has got to have a good result today. He had an absolute stonker in Australia where he chucked it in the barrier in the final sector after it was looking so promising for him earlier in the race. So to have your season start like that, I think you need to get up and running pretty quickly, particularly when he has incredible potential and incredible pace. He just needs some points on the board.
Yes, more forgiving track here today. You know, the crash barriers are very much far away from the edge of the circuit, unlike Australia, which claimed quite a few victims across AOR. But yeah, no, both Red Bull drivers, Diego and Chicken, they'll be looking for better things after last week. Although Chicken is not actually racing here today for the Red Bull, so is Tim Palm the same person, or is that one of the reserves?
Tim Palm was definitely in last week's race. But anyway, riding on board with Floris, a man who probably should have done much better in Australia than he actually did. He was absolutely rapid, but if you remember, he picked up so many corner cutting warnings, I think probably more than I've ever seen anybody get in the top tier of AOR. It was kind of crazy how much he was corner cutting. Thankfully, I don't think it'll be that much of a problem for the drivers today, because Bahrain is a bit more forgiving corner cutting wise in Australia at least.
Yes, I mean, there's only a few parts of the track. It was quite surprising how many penalties Flores got last week. But yeah, in terms of the penalties here, there's only really a few sections, maybe cutting, you know, the sweeping S-bends at the end of Sector 1, perhaps the final corner as well. But there's quite, you know, unlike 2017, there's that sort of edged curve, so you don't want to go over that because that will really unbalance you and leave you a sitting duck on the main straight. So I think most drivers will be taking the safer option of not cutting the last corner.
Definitely. The last corner is a little bit hazardous, but I think probably the most hazardous corner on this track as we go through turns 5 and 6 is the exit of turn 6. That curb on the outside there is absolutely vicious. And even though you have huge amounts of runoff on the left-hand side, I have seen a number of people go pinging off that curb and sent straight into a barrier and just be complete passengers because you're just going so fast that there's no chance to stop before you get anywhere near that barrier.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the characteristics of F1 2018, which is very different to last year's game, is that, you know, some of these curbs are absolutely terrifying if you put a wheel on them. And that particular section you mentioned there, you want to stay to the left if you can. You don't want to put your car on the right. If you go on the throttle there too late, as you say, you will be spinning out of control.
I agree. Even though the track may on paper look quite a lot more simple than Australia, you don't quite have the same kind of technical complexity like you do at, say, perhaps turns 11 and 12, which I would say are probably two of the hardest corners on the track. You probably don't quite have anything quite as difficult as that, but because there are so many heavy braking zones, because there are so many opportunities for it to go wrong, it is still equally as hard, I think, to string a lap together. And the tyre wear, I think, is the biggest challenge around this track, though. We didn't see too much strategic variation in Australia, but I think because the tyre wear is so extreme here, we're going to see almost a 50-50 split in the grid here.
Yeah, I think so. Although, so far, no one attempting to set a lap time on the softs, which is quite surprising. But there's no doubt that some of those super soft times we're seeing are not representative of their true pace. So I think some are sandbagging a little bit, and we will see them, you know, put on the soft tyres at the end of the session to try and get into the top 10 on the softs.
Definitely. I think if they are going to go on the softs, they're going to want to run on the super softs as much as possible to just try and get a feel for the track, try and warm yourselves up, really, and then try and make the most of the extra track grip that you have at the end of the session. I believe let's stay on board with RC Alonso actually here as he comes through the final sector. It's looked like a reasonably decent lap, but we're not sure whether he will actually complete it or whether he'll peel off into the pits and go for a set of softs at the end of the session. Nobody really knows. I can say though, one of the things that many league racers have done through the years is when they're trying to set a lap, or they want to set their fastest lap on the harder compound of tyre, they'll go out and set an invalidated lap on the softer compound, or set just a slower lap and slow down before the line so that they have a delta for their fastest lap on the harder compound tyres, which for some people can be a big help.
Yes, no, it's very useful, and that's one of the benefits of having these longer 18-minute qualifying sessions this year. Does allow you to go out there and just see what the track's like, and you know, do you have to make adjustments to your bias or your wing when you come back into the pits? It's very useful. Even with park firming, you can still make a few crucial changes to the car after doing that sort of non-representative lap.
Yeah, and even if you can't change anything, I still think the fact that it gives you a good warm-up is enough to warrant making that decision. But Ollie D has just smacked it on pole position. He had a bit of a shocking qualifying session in Australia. We won't beat around the bush at all. He found himself down in P11, which for a former champion is not where you want to be at all. But it looks like he is eager to make amends today, and he's put in a 25.7, which is, at this time in the session, a very impressive lap time.
It is, but we've still got over 7 minutes of session to go, and the track evolution is only going to get better and better as time goes on. I mean, will we get Is it possible for someone to even go under 1 minute 25? You never know with some of these guys, such as the quality of the field. I mean, that would be something that would raise the roof for those watching at the moment. Got over 140 watching at the moment already. We're not even at the race. So I think people know what this track is like in terms of the racing, and that's why they're tuning in, because they know that they're going to see a lot of action, perhaps more than we saw in Australia last week in terms of on-track action. And Australia was a fantastic race in its own right. So let alone what this is going to be.
Yeah, as good as Australia was, I have a sneaking suspicion that this one might just edge it in terms of entertainment, purely because it is so much easier to overtake, and as we've said many times already, the different strategies on show will probably provide us with almost 2 separate races for the first half of the race, and then at the end we get to see how they come together and who will eventually come out on top. We expect the Supersoft runners to really struggle to try and do a one-stop. We've seen over the years in AOR that the strategy with the fewer stops is almost always the best way to go, but trying to do super soft medium is a real stretch on those tyres.
It absolutely is, but oh, look at that!
Wow.
I was going to draw your attention just before Epic Gamers smashed it. The gaps between Ollie down to Tim Palm are very close indeed, but Epic Gamer, bit of a statement there with just over 6 minutes of session to go.
25.5 is unreal, and we still have 6 minutes of track evolution, and as people get faster and faster throughout the session, that's going to get even lower. But talk about throwing the gauntlet down on your second lap. Actually, thinking about that, I'm not sure whether anyone is going to beat that, simply because even though it's not at the end of the session, that is just such a fast lap.
Well, Eagle responded, and he's got within a 10th of that time. So I think there is still time to go. I mean, if you switch on the gaps so that the audience can see, I mean, the gaps in the top 10 are, I mean, this is ultra competitive stuff at the moment, and still got one more final round to go of lap times.
Yeah, and it's only going to get closer and closer. And that's another thing to note actually about Bahrain, is that for whatever reason, it always produces a very close grid. I've never quite been able to put my finger on why, but we've had crazy qualifying sessions here in the past that have resulted in grids that have been, or top 10s even, that have been separated by 3, maybe at a stretch 4/10 of a second, which is just absolutely crazy when you consider how long the circuit is. To be separated by a few tenths of a second, or 10 drivers to be separated by a few tenths of a second, is just crazy.
I know, absolutely is. Well, I mean, nearly 70% of this lap is taken at full throttle. So in terms of the setup, a lot of the drivers, it'll be very similar setups. Making sure they have enough downforce to deal with the technical section of sector 2, but it is mostly just powering down the selections of straights you have here. So that's probably why a lot of the time the grids are very close here, in AOR and all the lower tiers as well.
I mean, as a certain Big C once said, it is just a mixture of corners and braking zones, which I think does sum up the track pretty well, but we'll gloss over that as we go back on board with Williams Nardi, who has gone out on these soft tyres, interestingly, and we did expect this to happen, and it appears that Nardi is the first one to be out on the soft tyres, and he's left himself 4.5 minutes pretty much to set as good a lap as he possibly can on these soft tyres. He's currently down in 15th. We don't think he's set a representative lap time, so this is going to be very interesting to see where he can go on these softs. We expect the fastest soft times to probably be around 26 flat, 26.1 maybe at a push, but we'll have to wait and see how they compare to super soft runners. They are definitely not going to be anywhere near as fast as those super softs.
No, absolutely not. And to be honest, given how many super soft runners we've seen, he's going to be struggling to even get into the top 10.
Yeah.
So he's coming to the line now, but I don't think this is a representative time. The softs do take a bit longer to warm up, so you might need the extra lap to do that. So he's heading down to the end of the first corner now, and we've got Freak and also RC Alonso coming out on the soft. So the majority going for the aggressive super soft. So that's going to really make it a fast and furious first stint.
The thing with going with the softs is that you trade having track position by going on the super softs for a strategic advantage, and it is a bit of a toss-up which one is more important, because turns 1, 2, 3 and 4 at Bahrain on the opening lap can be very interesting to say the least. We've had a number of incidents there in the past, so by not qualifying on the fastest compound of tyre, you leave yourself vulnerable to whatever happens in the midfield, which is a very dangerous place to be.
Yes, I mean, Bahrain, you know, it's not, for me, it's not as dangerous a first corner as Australia, because there's so much more speed going into the first corner of Australia. However, unlike Australia, there's far bigger concertina effect here at turn 1 at Bahrain. And when you're in the midfield, you can basically get stuck in a sandwich of cars and then lose your front wing. So that's what they got to look out for. Going to the outside of turn 1 is often the place you want to be to avoid contact, because everyone's scrambling for position down the inside.
Yeah, I mean, the famous saying, you can't win the race on lap 1, but you can certainly lose it, and hopefully all the drivers today will abide by that. Otherwise, we will be seeing carbon fibre debris aplenty at turn 1 as Nardi crosses the line and goes 13th on the soft tyres, and that's a perfectly respectable lap on the softs, and it's put him all the way down in 13th, and I'm sure that is not what he would have wanted one bit. And I was mentioning that a strategy advantage versus track position advantage, he has given up so much track position. I don't know whether that's actually going to be a viable strategy at all.
Well, it will depend really how the guys ahead of him manage their tyres, because they're all going to be close to each other. The tyre wear on the rears especially so severe. You know, if they battle too hard, some of these guys might not even get to lap 5. That's how bad the tyre wear has been that I've seen from some guys. So, you know, yes, he may be way down there at the moment, but, you know, I wouldn't write him off just yet, because those outside the top 10 will have free choice of tyres, and they'll be able to dictate the race a little bit more as long as they stay out of contact. Where those on the super softs in the top 10, they have no choice but to try and tyre save a little bit, and then try and, you know, do a really long stint on those mediums, and, you know, it will be a struggle for some of them.
It's worth pointing out as well that we expect the two-stop to be not completely uncompetitive, but it would take something quite drastic to happen for the two-stop to be the best strategy in this race, we imagine, because the one-stop is just almost always the better strategy to go with. So if you commit to a two-stop, I think it's almost a bit of a death sentence in this race. You're going to have to pull something crazy out the bag to make it work.
Yes, I mean, back in F1 2016, the medium compound was pretty useless here, but gradually the one-stop has become king here as we reach the end of the qualifying session.
We head into the final few moments of qualifying. Let's find somebody who's on a lap. Let's go on board with Tim Palm, who's currently sat in P5. Michael retires from the session down in P4. Epic Gamer goes fastest with a 25.2. Would you look at that? That is an unbelievable lap from the Haas driver. We clearly didn't see his best in Australia. He has just stunned the grid and put it on provisional pole by 0.4 of a second and promptly retires from the session. I'm not surprised after that. That would take some bettering as we ride on board with Deagle Killer, the man who's provisionally in P2, but he's got quite a response to find to that. He's just had his time beaten by 0.4 of a second. This has got to be an inch perfect lap from him if he wants to have any chance of pole.
Yes, I mean, that is a stunning lap from the Haas driver, and well, he's got to find over 0.4 to Eagle, and, you know, some of the drivers down the order have got to find even more time. Let's see who's, well, flying Big C just coming out of the final corner. He's currently in 8th position, just seeing what he can do. There's still quite a few drivers finishing their final laps, and Big C goes 3rd.
Wow.
So that's respectable from Big C.
There's more than respectable. That's an awesome lap from him. He's making his debut, well, not his debut, but his first race this season since he missed Australia due to, I think it was work. But let's stay on board with Deagle Killer as he comes into the final corner. He needs to find 0.4 to try and put himself back on pole position. And look how close it is in 3rd and 4th as well. This is going to be incredibly close up to the line. What can Deagle do? Can he improve? Can he challenge Epic Gamer up to the line? He improves his time, but it's not enough to challenge for pole position. Let's go back on board with Ollie D as he comes through the final corner. Can he say anything about this? He's currently down in P5, almost half a second off pole. Where is he going to go? He goes 3rd. He improves marginally and moves himself ahead of Big C and Jarno. Let's go on board with Tim Palm. I don't think he's on a lap. Flying Finn comes into the pits, and I think this is starting to look like our final grid order here.
Yeah, certainly is. Alonso's not had a good lap on the softs, unfortunately, so he's going to start outside top 10. Yeah, so very aggressive qualifying session. So that is, you know, this is the grid we get. It's a much more aggressive grid than I expected. I was expecting to see a few soft runners in top 10, but clearly these guys value the track position for the start of the race rather than, you know, looking to be a bit too clever on the alternate strategy to start with anyway.
I mean, looking at the grid now, we had only 2 drivers who decided to set their fastest lap on the soft compound of tyres, which is completely different to what we expected going into this qualifying session. They have all gone for track position over strategy advantage, which is a big call. But if you look at the grid as well, the most notable thing I think about that, as well as the crazy fast pole time, is the fact that Synthetic 96, our reigning champion, is down in 18th and dead last. He did mention that he's not racing on his home setup, and so that might be why, but still, I'm sure he would have been expecting better than that.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I mean, that's a shocking qualifying performance for the reigning champion.
Yeah, that is really going to hurt him, actually. But as we look at the final grid, then, it is Epic Gamer who set a stunning 25-2, who blew the field away. It was looking so close, and then he goes and gets pole by 3.5 tenths of a second from Deagle in second, with Ollie D in third, Big C with a very strong performance in fourth, Yana Racing in fifth, Michael, the winner from last time out in Australia, down in sixth, Tim Palm, Danny, Flying Finn, and Alberto rounding out the top 10, and then Curly, crucially, is the first man with free tyre choice, which could play massively into his hands for the race. Flores down in P12 as well. And then we have Thorn, Freak, Nardi, Alex, Alonso and Synthetic rounding out the grid. And that's an incredibly high caliber of driver, all of those outside the top 10, to have a strategic advantage. And I think they are definitely going to come into play later in this race.
Yes, I mean, given that the majority of the top 10 are on the super softs, I mean, wow, I mean, the opening few laps could actually decide the outcome of the race overall for those guys. You know, if they take too much out of the tyres, too much out of their battery early on, they could be nowhere later on. But yeah, I would love to see an onboard lap of Epic Gamers pole position time, because that, you know, to be, given how tight the grid is, to even be a few tenths ahead is a significant advantage, and just shows you how good that lap was.
Yeah, that is hands down one of the best laps I've ever seen in this league in any season that I've witnessed, which is saying an awful lot. To be 3 tenths ahead of this grid, as you said, is just shows incredible talent, and it's even more crazy when you consider where he was in Australia. He was still at a respectable showing in Australia. He was towards the lower end of the points, but at no point did he ever look like showing this kind of pace.
No, not at all. But he's come back fighting with quite the statement as we go on the formation lap.
Yeah, to say the least. To get pole by 3 tenths even is the biggest statement you can probably make. But now the race is a different story. Can he handle the pressure of being an AOR pole sitter, which from my own experience is huge? And on the formation lap, the pressure will just be building and building. We're running through all the possibilities that could go on at turn 1 in his mind, and I can assure you there are plenty of them. But it's just so much to think about, and a huge amount in this race will rest on that start.
Yes, absolutely. But according to Dan, the good owner of AOR, it's a new lap record, at least for the time being, until we see what happens in all the other tiers and consoles and PC, of course. But yeah, no, I mean, obviously, nowhere near this level, but I've been in pole position in an F1 game like this, and yeah, it's a lot of pressure. But the best thing to do is just to, you know, just check the settings. Just, you know, take a sip of water. You know, to take a deep breath and just, you know, enjoy it. You know, you've earned that pole position, and it's a great feeling to be leading the entire field behind you and with no one in front of you at the start.
I can tell you, when I was on pole, though, I did not enjoy it one bit. Hands shaking, knees shaking, a slippy clutch pedal, anything could possibly go wrong. I thought it was the most horrible part of league racing. Hopefully Epic Gamer deals with it a little bit better than I used to do, and we'll see if he can convert his qualifying pace into race pace. Then surely he's got to be a favourite for this race. But if he's gone for an aggressive setup, that might compromise his strategy pretty severely.
Yes, I mean, he's got the glory of pole position, but will he be feeling a bit of pain a few laps into this race?
Yeah, that is a very big point. Those rear tyres may be crying enough by the time we even get 5-6 laps into this race if he's not careful and if he doesn't look after them. And as we've seen many countless times in the past in many leagues, not just in AOR, qualifying pace and race pace are a completely different kettle of fish. You can be crazy fast in qualifying and then fall off in the race. Although I have a sneaking suspicion that with the pace Epic Gamer has shown in qualifying, it would take quite a lot for him to fall drastically off the pace in this race, as everybody is filling into their grid slots for the Bahrain Grand Prix. We are going to have an awesome race for you tonight under the lights for the first time this season. We are ready to go racing in Bahrain. We are waiting for the 5 red lights to come on the screen. There they are now. 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights. Is lights out, and away we go for the Bahrain Grand Prix. And it looks like initially a very good start from Deagle Killer into turn 1. Is he going to be able to challenge the Haas? The Epic Gamer goes defensive potentially into turn 1. The Rebels maybe looking down the inside. It's 5 wide, almost behind. It's getting very hectic. Deagle Killer manages to maintain second for now. Ollie finds himself in P3 still. Big C maintains P4, and there are people falling all the way down the grid behind. Flying Finn is just about maintaining P5. There are cars everywhere behind. Yana Racing on the outside of the Toro Rosso manages to get through cleanly, and the two McLarens are going side by side in the bottom end of the top 10, and Flores on the soft compound of tyres has already got his way up into P8.
Yeah, it was not a great start for Michael. He lost 3 places at the start, so the championship leader having a difficult opening part of the lap. Whereas Flores, he's on the soft compound side, and he's already making some moves. He's challenging for 7th position, so strategically, he is the highest running soft runner of the moment.
Flores might have worked this strategy to perfection, starting on the softs and already being up in P8 by the time we haven't even finished lap 1 yet, which is a really, really good opening lap from him, like we saw from Sebastian Vettel earlier on this morning. But hopefully for Flores, he has a little bit more successful rest of the race than Vettel had in Japan this morning, as we are still on board with Deagle Killer. He's fallen about 7/10 of a second behind Epic Gamer, and it's really crucial at this stage that he stays in the DRS and he stays in the slipstream, otherwise it's going to be very hard for him to stay with the Haas.
Yes, I mean, Epic Gamer so far has had an absolutely perfect getaway from the start line, and he's nearly already out of DRS range, so it's been absolutely fantastic from the Haas drivers so far. And Flores now looking to make a move for 7th position, and fantastic first lap for Flores, and on the best strategy in theory.
Flores is definitely going to be a major player as we move later on into this race. As looking into turn 1, I think he will be able to make a move on that Haas as he stays in P7 for now. Oh, that was very, very close between Dom and Michael as they almost hit each other on the exit of turns 2 and 3, and they're going to go side by side into turn 4. And I think Michael maybe on the super softs are going to be able to hang around the outside of turn 4. That's not a move you see very often, and he manages to maintain P8. But for Michael on these super soft tyres, to be behind someone already who's on the soft tyres, that is not looking good for his race at all at this stage.
No, not at all. Alex has dropped to the back of the grid. Synthetic has only gained a place from the start, so maybe the fact that he's not using his own setup is affecting him a little bit, but so far not making the gains I expected. The two Toro Rossos, incidentally, making contact as we went past turn 1, but neither getting damage.
There's never something you want to see, making contact with your teammate, but as long as both of them are still pointing in the right direction and looking alright in this race, it doesn't really hurt anybody. And the two Toro Rossos having a very strong showing in 4th and 5th place as we're about to finish the second lap of this Bahrain Grand Prix. And I'm not sure Big C would have expected to find himself up in P4. We've seen in the past that qualifying pace has never been his strength. It's always been staying out of trouble and pulling off the correct strategy and having good pace in the race, rather than in qualifying that's always brought him good results. So to see him up in P4 is a little bit surprising, but it's probably going to give him a huge chance to do something later in this race because he's much further up than he normally is. Yes,
absolutely. I think Big C, he had a good, very, very good start, very calm, measured, maintained his grid position. But, the top 3 already dropping Big C and Flying Finn. Epic Gamer, he's gone so aggressive in the opening laps. He's used up almost all of his battery, but as a result, he's out of DRS range. So the right move for the time being.
He is absolutely flying. And you have to say, up to this point from Epic Gamer in the Haas, it has been a flawless display, a flawless qualifying, flawless getaway off the line, and a flawless opening 2.5 laps. And he's found himself 1.5 seconds ahead of Deagle Killer in 2nd place, which at this stage of the race is a very nice position to be in, as just behind him, Deagle Killer and Ollie D are running pretty much nose to tail, and Ollie has managed to stay in the DRS of the Red Bull and will probably be having a look into turn 1. It's good to see Ollie having much better qualifying than he did in Australia, although he was able to pull off a crazy strategy and a really good result in the end. To see him so far up at this stage in the race is much more like we're used to seeing from him.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Big C has not had a great sector 2, and he's now under pressure from Flying Finn. He's nearly 2 seconds behind Ollie, and Michael has recovered from his sort of slow start, and he's now putting the attack back on his teammate Flores.
As we go through the final corner, the two Toro Rossos are nose to tail, and with DRS, I think the Flying Finn may be having a look at Big C. Is he going to fight it at all? The two teammates going side by side into turn 1. Big C doesn't really make any effort to defend. Is he going to try and be later enough on the brakes? No, he is not. He actually turned down the ERS, and I think he probably let his teammate through at that point. Flying Finn had a very assured display in Australia, and it looks like we're seeing more of the same here in Bahrain. He's actually, I believe, if I've read his driver introduction correctly, he's a very young driver, only 13. So to see him driving this well at that age is absolutely awesome.
Oh, it absolutely is awesome. It also makes me feel incredibly old. I don't know about you.
Not quite the same, but close enough, I think. As we go back on board with Ollie D, who is still running behind Deagle in second. He hasn't been able to make massive inroads, even with the DRS and the slipstream. We expect him to be sat behind for probably at least another 3 or 4 laps before the pit window opens for these super soft runners. It really depends how long they think they can risk these tyres, and then how long they can risk the mediums at the end of the race, depending on when they want to pit.
Yes, absolutely right. Well, Epic Gamer, there are signs that his super softs are starting to go off already, because he dropped 3/10 in sector 2, although he's had a good exit coming out of turn 14. So, but yeah, I think the super softs are starting to go for some of these guys already.
I would agree. I would definitely agree. The rear tyres go off incredibly quickly around this track, as we are again back on board with Ollie D, who was looking very, very close to the back of Deagle in the Red Bull. Is he close enough, though, to go for a move into turn 1? Is he going to look for a dive? No, he fakes to the inside and then thinks better of it as we go on board again with the 2 Toro Rossos. And I think that's Jarno down the inside of Big C. They make contact into turn 1. I think Big C might lose another position here, as the 2 McLarens as well were going side by side behind, and indeed he does. Jarno is up into P5 and Big C loses another position down into P6. He's having to go defensive from Flores, and Flores has hit the back of him into turn 4, and Flores' good start has all been undone, as now the Force India's gone wide as well. There's more carbon fibre. It's almost 3 wide into turns 5 and 6. Flores definitely has damage. He's pushed off Jarno, racing, and they push each other off, and now Michael is able to get both of them into the turn 8 hairpin, and Flores comes flying back down the inside into the hairpin, and it's 3 wide again between the 2 McLarens and the Force India. Flores is all over the shop, and now he's being hit by the Mercedes as well as Freak, and it's all getting very, very busy into turn 8 and 9, and I think they have all managed to survive just about, but there is definitely some damage to that Force India, and almost definitely damage to Flores' McLaren as well. He's really hindered his own race here. He has not helped himself one bit by picking up front wing damage. All he had to do was be a bit more cautious, as Freak is getting boxed in, and Jarno goes around the outside of Flores and Freak into the penultimate corner. He's still on the outside, and it's going to be 3 wide again. Surely it's, oh my goodness me, there are cars everywhere. It's going to be 3 wide into the final corner. Freak looking down the inside of the McLaren and the Force India. Flores backs out of it this time. Can Freak make a double overtake? No, he can't. He taps the rear wheel of Jarno in the Force India, and now he's going to be losing another position, surely to Dom, as Flores pulls into the pits to change his front wing. It's going to get very busy into turn 1 again, as Jarno leads 3 cars. It's going to be Freak looking to the inside. Is Curly going to try and get involved as well, as Danny looks to the outside of all of them at turn 1. He runs very wide, and he's going around the outside of 3 cars at turn 1. He pushes off Freak slightly on the exit. He's going to move to cover the inside for turn 4, and they are still going side by side here. Is Freak going to look down the inside? He is. He dives down the inside into turn 4 again. He's throwing caution to the wind at this stage in the race. He's now the highest soft runner, and they're going to go side by side through turns 5 and 6, and Freak on the inside manages to get the move done ahead of the Haas driver, and that is probably the most hectic section of racing I have ever seen in my life. And Danny and Jarno are still going side by side here. Neither of them is prepared to give up this battle, and I think for now, it has settled down. No, Jarno's looking down the inside again into turn 9. And has he made it work? He has. As turn 10, actually, forgive me there. But he's managed to get down the inside, and he's going to be side by side through the DRS zone into turn 11. Jay Thorne and Curly trying to get involved as well. Jarno down the inside. He is still side by side with Danny. I'm completely out of breath now. Danny gets beast on the outside. Kirby cannot quite stay side by side with the others. And oh my goodness, that was insane.
Well, I'll give you a chance to breathe there, Ali. that was literally 10 cars going all NASCAR on us for an entire lap. Absolute insanity. But that all started with Big C having half a look at Flying Finn, and at the same time, Flores made a move on him behind him, so he hit the back of him, and that is what the trigger was for that absolute lunacy of midfield action. But it was absolutely awesome to watch, and they're still going at it into turn 1.
They are indeed, as Freak is now managing to break 3, but just look how many cars are in that camera shot, and somehow, in all of that, Jay Thorne has managed to work his way up into P7, having started way, way down the order, as I think that is Curly and Jarno maybe going side by side. No, I think it's RC Alonso actually, side by side with Danny, who was up at P7 at one point, like half a lap ago, and now he finds himself down in P11, which is just incredible. The racing between these midfield guys has been absolutely incredible, and I think even though Flores was being a little bit of a lunatic in that section, we do have him to thank for that, for just diving at every opportunity. It seemed that he lost his front wing on the back of Big C, and then a moment of madness just ensued, and he went flying down the inside of everybody and almost caused an almighty crash, but the ensuing racing was just awesome to watch.
Yes, well, all that action, I'm going to have to update everyone watching on a few things. Well, first of all, Epic Gamer's pitted for his first pit stop, so he's got a long stint ahead of him onto the medium tyres to the end. Ollie has overtaken Deagle, but I believe these two are more about to pit on this lap. So let's see what they do. Are they going to carry on? So they're opting to go for a longer stint on the Supersofts. I'm surprised Deagle didn't pit just then, because his Supersofts don't look very healthy at all.
No, my apologies to everyone watching for not catching that battle for the lead. I was just getting so caught up in what was going on in the midfield that we appear to have missed some quite dramatic developments. And Epic Gamer finds himself a long way down the order, almost fighting with Flores. And he is 11 seconds behind the car in front. So, crucially, he has got himself some clean air on those medium tyres. And he is going to have a monster undercut on these two, because their super softs at this point are probably going to be crying enough.
Yes, indeed, and I think unfortunately Big C has wing damage, because he's or maybe not actually. Oh no wing damage, false alarm. But he has come in. So most of the Supersoft runners are coming in now. So Ollie, in terms of the Supersoft runners, is looking the most impressive so far. You know, he has a pace of 1 over Deagle, and his tyres look okay. So maybe he'll be able to stretch these out a little bit longer, and then have better tyre life at the end.
We'll have to wait and see how this pans out, because it's looking at this point like it is so finely poised between the soft runners and the super soft runners. If you're looking down the order, you can see Freak in 5th place is not that far behind the leaders at all, really, and the fact that he has such a strategic advantage could come hugely into play as we come into the latter stages of this race. I think Flores would have benefited from that had he not had that moment of madness into turn 4 when he was racing with Big C, and then caused all kinds of problems, as we're on board with Alex going down the inside of Alberto but can't make it stick. I think Alex actually started on this set of medium tyres, so he, again, potentially is another one who could come into play later in this race. They are still going side by side as the final corner. Alberto's Supersofts are probably almost dead at this point. I imagine he will probably be coming into the pit at the end of this lap, and yes, he does, and Alex moves up another position. So let's just look through the order then. That's Flying Finn in the pits, allowing Synthetic, Nardi, Alonso, all the soft runners to move up the order. But again, we still have Michael, Deagle and Ollie out on that first set of Supersofts.
Yes, absolutely. Although Epic Gamer is setting good times on the medium so far, and he's got nice clear air. I mean, he's taking about a second out of Alex ahead of him of the past 2 laps he's completed on those mediums. So he's really pushing hard to make sure he gets a big advantage, so that later on he can tyre save a little bit, because he's got to go longer than the 3 guys who are currently in the top 3 on the Supersource who are yet to pit.
I imagine he will have to do some serious tyre saving when we come to the end of this race, though, because he pitted so early compared to these guys. They're going to have such a big advantage, and although the mediums don't wear anywhere near as much as other tyres, so the advantage of having 2 or 3 lap fresher tyres probably won't be as exaggerated as it could have been at some other tracks. It will still definitely tell as we come into the closing laps of this race. And looking at the battle in inverted commas for this lead, Ollie is pulling out ahead of Deagle Killer, and the gap is now 1.8 seconds, so he has some serious pace on these Supersofts.
Yes, I mean, Ollie, I'm very impressed with the time management. He comes into the pits, but yeah, Deagle's tyres have gone off way earlier than Ollie's. And, well, now we're going to see how much of an undercut Epic got, because he's got no traffic. He's had nice fresh start. I think he'll have a significant advantage, maybe about 5 seconds by my reckoning.
That would be quite a crazy strategy if he has managed to pull that one off. You can see his ERS is running very, very low. He has been pushing like a madman at this point in the race. He is coming past the pit exit now, and there are his competitors for the lead of this race. And actually, that's not quite as big as I thought it was going to be. You can see Ollie there, I think he's only 1.6 seconds back, the game is telling us, and he has 3 lap fresher tyres. Wow, he has really worked that to... it's a little bit more than that, actually, 2.5 seconds, but still, the point still stands. When they have to clear traffic as well, I really don't think that disadvantage for Ollie is that big at all.
No, not at all. I think he suddenly found a lot of pace right at the end of that stint on on the super softs, and it's actually reduced the advantage that I thought Epic was going to have, although it's just over 3 seconds now. Jay Fawn is it's now the focus is on the battle on the soft runners for the time being, and Jay Fawn is closing in on the Ferrari of Curly Whirly.
As Freak actually picks up a 3-second time penalty. Oh, he was doing this in Australia as well. That is really going to hurt him, probably even more so here, simply because nowhere near as many people are going to be picking up time penalties. So otherwise he's in a perfect position here. He's got completely clean air, and he's got a 5-second advantage, and he's on the best strategy by a mile. So the fact that he's just got a 3-second time penalty at a track where you don't expect people to be picking up penalties very much at all is going to be a big shame for him as we come later into this race. I think it's going to have probably a big effect on the final result.
I completely agree. I mean, it's one thing to pick up a penalty at a track where it's very difficult to avoid them, like Australia, but here there's no excuse really picking up a penalty here. It's pretty simple to avoid getting a time penalty here, and as I say that, Tim gets another one, so maybe not. What do I know?
Oh, commentator's curse. We've just absolutely cursed all of these drivers for corner cutting penalties, it seems, as this train from P2 to pretty much P6, I think, as that is Synthetic, who is the last of the soft runners who actually started on the soft compound of tyres. So even though he started right at the very back in this race and he's racing on a setup that is not his own, he has still managed to navigate the opening of this race pretty cleanly, and he finds himself in a position that could, in all honesty, be much worse given where he started.
Yes. Well, Flying Finn is on the move. He's caught Deagle and Ollie. Ollie not getting those medium tyres warm yet because he's lost half a second on the last lap to Epic. So Epic's sort of net lead, if you will, is now 4 seconds to Ollie behind him. So Flying Finn just biding his time. It's another impressive drive from the young Finn so far.
Very impressive indeed. And it is, again, worth noting that with the changes brought to the tyre temperatures in this game, trying to warm up the medium tyres, the hardest compound of tyre available at this circuit, is going to be much harder than it has been on previous games, and it takes a few laps for you to get up to temperature and to get up to the speed of everyone who's already been on these tyres for a few laps, and maybe that's what Ollie's experiencing. I know he's a very smooth driver, so perhaps being less aggressive in his driving style means that he takes a little bit longer to heat up these tyres, and it's really going to hurt him here as he has to go defensive to Deagle into turn 1. Deagle and the Red Bull trying to go around the outside as that's Freak just coming out of the pits as well, looking to get involved with Flying Finn. They are going to go side by side behind, and I think Freak, unfortunately for him, and unfortunately for the Mercedes team, is coming out just behind the Toro Rosso driver, and that is very unfortunate for him. But you've got to say, he's in a really good position now. He's on the freshest medium tyres of everyone, and he's right in the scrap for the net lead of this race.
Yes, absolutely. And let's not forget Michael. I mean, he had a poor start, but he's just been quietly going about his business. He's just overtaken Big C for 12th, but he's still in this fight. He's got to try and get back up to this group of 4 cars who, at the moment, assuming Epic Gamer doesn't have a disaster with his tyre management, this looks like the battle for second. But don't forget, there's still plenty of soft runners, including Synthetic, Curly and J-Fawn, who haven't pitted. So these guys could all come together at the end of the race.
They could indeed, and I have a feeling that the end of this race is going to be even crazier than the start of it has been, simply because there are so many different strategies at play, so many different drivers doing different things with slight variations or even major variations, and the soft runners who are still going at the moment might come into play even more at the end of this race. Let's have a look at the Gap 2 leader, actually. So Curly is our provisional leader. He is not in the net lead because he hasn't actually made a stop yet, as I think that's RC Alonso coming into the pits just ahead of them. So Curly might just be in the fray with these guys, although if we think that Freak was 5 seconds ahead of Curly when he pitted, you would assume that Curly is going to be 6, maybe 7 seconds behind this battle. It depends how much that they're fighting each other and holding each other up, because if they start fighting at all, they're going to start losing huge amounts of time, and that could bring in itself Curly, Jaython, and maybe at a stretch Synthetic into play.
Yes, completely agree, but just gonna Deagle and Ollie having a fantastic battle for what is at the moment net second, and Deagle goes round the outside of Ollie, so they've been battling pretty much since the first corner. So Deagle finally getting past Ollie, at least for the time being.
What a move from Deagle, and that's going to be crucial for the net podium in this race. That is Deagle up into what we believe is going to be a net second. He runs a little bit wide though through turn 9. He clouts the curb on the entry, and I think this might give Ollie another chance as we come into the final sector here. This train, as I said, they are just starting to battle, and it's going to hold them all up and play into the hands of the likes of Epic Gamer and Curly and the others who are looking to get involved in this battle as well. So Ollie, following the Red Bull 3 penultimate corner, this 4-car train might just end up 3 or even 4 wide as we go into turn 1. Though a bit of a split is developing between Ollie and Flying Finn, so we might see a double Mercedes overtake here with Ollie on the Red Bull and then Freak on the Toro Rosso behind. So let's ride on board with Ollie as he goes through the final corner. He's going to be in the DRS with the slipstream. Surely he's close enough now to go for a move into turn 1. He is right behind that Red Bull. He's turning his ERS down actually. Is he going to go for a move? No, not quite. Is he going to look to the inside though? Is he going to go for a dive? No, he's not. Freak is though on the other hand, down the inside. Oh, there's contact. The Toro Rosso's run into Ollie in front of him, and that was very aggressive defending. He completely outbroke himself, steamed into the Mercedes ahead of him, and that is allowing Deagle Killer to get away a little bit. That looked like very aggressive defense from that Toro Rosso. He was looking to try and outbrake Freak in the braking zone and then just steamed into Ollie. Didn't account for the cars in front of him, and oh, that could have ended so much worse than it did.
Yes, well, a youthful error from Flying Finn, but you know, ultimately he didn't cause damage to either driver. At least I don't think he did, so he sort of got away with it. But yeah, Freak looking very quick. Oh, he's going to go for an audacious move into 9 and 10.
Wow, what a move from Freak. Talk about opportunistic. Couldn't make it stick at turn 1, but slips down the inside of turn 9 and now finds himself in what we think is a net P4. But again, like Australia, you got to remember that Freak is one of the few drivers who has a 3-second time penalty in this race. And looking at how close the field is now, that's going to drop him, well, 2 or 3 positions, I think, at this point. And at the end, I can only imagine it's going to be more.
Yes, well, I think the grid's going to be so close unless we get something dramatic happen and several cars are taken out. Hopefully not. So Alex is the only driver then in the top 10 who hasn't pitted. I think, no, in fact, the only driver who hasn't pitted at all. He's done 14 laps, so he's going to be doing a few more laps yet before he switches to the softs. I don't think it's going to be worth stretching out for the super softs. He'll lose far too much time. So Epic Gamer will have at least one overtake to do, I believe, even though in theory it should be a no contest.
I can't imagine Alex is going to put up much of a fight here. He's a very, very intelligent guy and very experienced racer, and he, I think, will probably know at this point that his battle is not with Epic Game. I think what Alex is waiting for now and just praying for is a safety car, because otherwise I don't think he's really in any kind of situation to challenge in this race. If you look, he was just behind Synthetic, who's pitted and come out in 17th place. So that's a little indicator of where he might come out, as the two Mercedes running very, very close together. If you remember back to 2014 in real life, we saw an awesome battle between the two Mercedes, and I think we might see another pretty good one between these two Mercedes cars here. Both of them have proven to be very fast. Freak starting on the alternate strategy, and he has 3-lap fresher medium tyres than the rest of the guys in this train. So that advantage could pay dividends as we move later on into this race. We've only just crossed the halfway point. We still have so much racing ahead of us.
Yes. I mean, there's been so much to talk about. I still haven't got over that midfield battle earlier on. But interestingly, Deagle has been lapping faster than Epic Game the last few laps. I don't know if Epic is just, you know, biding his time, saving some battery, bit of tyre saving, which he is going to have to do because he's done 3 extra laps. Meanwhile, further down the order, none of the people who came out, you know, on the softs for their first stint, they're not really in position at the moment because the pace of those on the mediums who pitted from the super softs has been so good. They're not really in it at the moment. So the strategy we didn't think would be the better one, not really working out so far.
As Freak goes to move down the inside of Ollie into turn 1, the two Mercedes go side by side through turns 2 and 3, and Freak runs a little bit wide on the exit of turn 1. I wonder if we would have picked up yet another corner cutting warning for that. They're going to go side by side into turn 4. Is Ollie going to be compliant and let his teammate through? I think he is, and that is probably the sensible decision at this point in the race. Freak seems to have some crazy pace, so now he's let his teammate go and he's going to go and charge after that Red Bull in front. I think maybe challenging Epic Gamer might be a little bit out of the question at this point, but you never know what might happen as we come into the latter stages of this race. But it's now Freak up into net P3.
Absolutely, and Epic Gamer is now within 1.2 seconds of car, so we may get a fairly routine overtake shortly, because, you know, Alex has been on those mediums for 15 laps now, and you can tell from the back of the car that he's starting to struggle a little bit. But, you know, who knows? You know, if he can't overtake him by the end of this lap, he might be trapped behind him for sector 1 at least, so that could cost him quite a bit of time. So Deagle has reduced the lead, actually, to 3 seconds.
So Deagle pushing hard, but pushing even harder is Freak just behind him, who has closed that gap to 3.5 tenths of a second. So Freak, also known as Dominic Hoffman, I think, is also going to be looking for a move into turn 1, maybe here, as he's going to turn the ERS. He's so close to the back of that Red Bull. He puts it up into hot lap. I'm sure he'll be changing that to Overtaking as they go side by side down the main straight, and Freak has got his way to the inside for turn 1. Is he going to be able to outbrake the Red Bull? He's been a demon on the brakes so far in this race, and is once again into turn 1 and moves himself up into P2. It's not net P2 anymore, it's actual P2, and he has made 2 overtakes in 2 laps, and he is absolutely flying here. He just needs to make sure he gets 3 seconds ahead, because again, like Australia, he's being hampered by those corner cutting penalties.
Yes, I mean, you know, when you have the speed, when you have the setup correct, it must be so frustrating when you make a simple error like that, and given how tight the grid is, it could drop him, you know, way off the podium at this rate. So at the moment, Big C, he's kind of dropped off the top 6, but he's not under threat from Flores behind. And Flores, you know, given how early he went on those mediums, he might have to stop again. So I think Big C, he's looking good for 7th at the moment.
And 7th, you have to say, would be a very solid result given the caliber of the grid that is racing today. So as we stay on board with this train from 2nd to 5th, all of these guys are so evenly matched on pace and so evenly matched on strategy in this race that it's proving to be absolutely fascinating to watch them, even still so far from the end of this race. There's still so much racing to go, but what we've had so far has been incredibly entertaining. I said in the intro that it would have a lot to live up to be as good a race as Australia was. I think he has already, regardless of what happens in the next few laps, has blown that out the water. So as we're about to start lap 18 of this race for the guys from P2 to P5, let's see if Ollie can make any kind of move. Deagle has his ERS right on full. He's in the slipstream. He has the DRS as well. Ollie looks to the inside, decides against that though, I think rather intelligently, although Deagle runs very wide at turn 1. He's very late on the brakes and didn't quite get the car stop properly as Freak picks up another corner cone penalty, and that's going to really destroy his race even more as Ollie now looking around the outside at turn 4. That's not really a place you want to be. Nardi retires from the session, unfortunately for him, and Ollie cannot find a way through still. He's slightly poking his nose down the inside into turns 5 and 6. They are side by side again. That's incredibly close, incredibly courageous move from Ollie. He's got the inside for the turn 8 hairpin, and if he makes this one stick, this would be an absolute worldie of an overtake. Flying Finn's trying to get involved as well. Will they go side by side into turn 9? No, they will not. And Ollie just about stays ahead, but what a move that was. I wasn't expecting that one bit. I thought after turn 1 that move was done and dusted, but Ollie with a really nice cutback line then forced his way to the inside for some fast sweeping corners and just had the courage to throw it down the inside, which I think is the stuff of a former champion.
Yes, absolutely. Ollie, you know, getting his elbows out, toughing it out. It's like a heavyweight boxing match for that. But yeah, just mentioning Nardi, he was involved in an incident in Sector 3, breaking his wing and went off the track and decided to retire the car.
It's very unfortunate for Nardi, and that Williams has not really been a very good day at all for the Williams team, with one retiree and the other car down in P12. So let's go on board with the Flying Finn as he's coming towards turn 1. This train is going to get very, very close together once again into turn 1. The Toro Rosso trying to look to the outside of the Red Bull. He's very late on the brakes. This time manages to avoid Ollie in the braking zone. Can he carry all the way around the outside? No, he cannot. That would have been a very optimistic move to try and make, and he could not make it stick in the end. He's not quite close enough either into turn 4 to be able to challenge that Red Bull. You have to be right on the exit, or right on the back of the car in front on the exit, if you want to have any chance of making a move into turn 4, because that straight just isn't long enough for you to be able to get a huge long slipstream from a second or so back. It needs to be almost 2 or 3 tenths on the exit of turn 1 for you to have any chance of making a move on the car in front. So let's just run you through the order at this stage of the race. We have our poleman, Epic Gamer, out in the lead of this race, who's currently 1.6 seconds ahead of NTG Freak, who has been slowly closing that gap from, well, it shows an awful lot actually from what it was at the start. It was almost 4 seconds from Epic Gamer to that group behind. So Freak on those 5 lap fresher tyres than the Haas is flying, but again he has those corner cutting penalties, so you have to take everything that Freak does in this race with a little bit of a pinch of salt, because that is going to adjust the final standings quite heavily. The second Mercedes of Ollie is a little bit further behind, 2.5 seconds behind Freak in 3rd place, but it is currently provisionally a double Mercedes podium, which for them would be a very impressive result.
Absolutely. Well, Gamer's got some very serious problems at the moment. His battery management and fuel is not good. He's got less than 5% battery. He's got yellow fuel. I mean, it is a hard track to manage battery because 66% of the lap is at full throttle, so there's not many places to recharge the battery as a result. And this is why Freak, who has managed the battery better, despite, yes, the corner cutting penalties, but he is eating into that advantage rapidly. And I think he'll be in DRS range at this rate within another lap.
And obviously Epic Gamer has no idea whatsoever whether Freak has any penalties or not, so he's going to fight it like his life depends on it. His ERS is looking very, very low though. I'm not sure how much he's going to actually be able to fight him, simply because that battery is running very, very low. I mean, even at the end of the straights and in the braking zones where he should be recharging his battery, it's still not really getting above 30%. And he's having to run, look, you can see he's in mode 1, which is low on the straights. So I think he's now consigned to his fate of being caught by Freak from behind, and he's just trying to save his ERS so he has something to fight with when he arrives.
Yes, absolutely. Well, he might know about the penalties if the the team radio on the game tells him. But yeah, I think on the straights, he's got it back up to 25%, but I'm not sure that's going to be enough. But I don't think Freak's going to go for a move this lap. He is in DRS range, but I don't think it's going to be quite close enough. He's going to bide his time.
He's just got to be sensible about this. I mean, he will know he has penalties. The Haas in front will not, but still, you can't do anything rash. When you're fighting for the lead in AOR, it's very easy for things to get into your head that you wouldn't normally rationally do otherwise. So he's just got to be a little bit careful that doesn't happen as we're looking at the battle for P3. Is Deagle going to have a look down the inside? He tries to. Oh, they are both so late on the brakes, locking up smoke going everywhere. But Ollie manages to maintain P3 for now. But that Red Bull is looking very ominous behind, and those three cars are able to stay with him at this point very easily. And unfortunately for Ollie, he hasn't quite on these mediums been able to match the blistering pace that we saw him have on those super softs earlier.
Yes, well, he's 3.3 seconds behind Freak, so if Freak can get past Epic and just, disappear off in the distance and Epic's tyres go off, he may yet be able to win this race. But yeah, Epic, I mean, he's got Freak right on his tail now, and, well, it's going to be a real challenge to keep ahead of him. But, if Epic can hold up Freak, even for a lap or so, it might bring that group of 4 cars behind, who I think realistically the only other cars who can win this race now, back into play.
I don't think Epic Gamer is in any kind of mind to be passive at all whilst defending from Freak. He's going to fight like his life depends on it for the lead of this race. He has lost so much time to Freak over these last few laps, and you can see he has 50% less battery. Before we even get onto the main straight, he is already as low as 17%. He's having to run none into the final corner, and surely now for Freak this is a huge opportunity to get past. He has so much more battery to use. He has 5 lap fresher tyres before we even get to the DRS zone. He is so close to the back of that Haas. Is he going to pull to the inside? He is. He's almost on the pit wall. Epic Gamer being so aggressive trying to defend, but Freak has forced his way to the inside, and he's later on the brakes, and he moves up into the lead of this race, and now he just has to disappear from Freak. 5 lap fresher tyres, so much more battery, but he's got those corner cutting penalties. He's got to get this gap up as quickly as possible as we look behind, and I think that Ollie D and Deagle aren't going to be fighting into turn 4, but Michael and Flying Finn are. Michael's trying to go around the outside at turn 4. Can he do what we saw Ollie try and do earlier in this race? Are they going to go side by side through turns 5 and 6? They are. Flying Finn is very aggressively defending from Michael, and he manages to maintain the position for now. Michael decides against sending it down the inside into turn 8, and we are battling throughout the field here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so much going on in midfield, but there's so much going on front. We have to keep an eye on it. I don't know, Epic's done 15 laps on those mediums. I just get the sense he might drop out of the podium, unfortunately, because he's just got nothing really left. I mean, he's got a bit of life left in the tyres, but the fact that he's having to fuel save and battery save at the same time on a track like this, which is so power dependent, especially in the final sector, I just don't know if he's had such an impressive day today, but it could all end in tears for the Haas driver, unfortunately.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be very, very tough. But his one lifeline in this race may be the fact that he can stay in the DRS and the slipstream of Freak, which at this point is his only chance of winning this race. He has to try and stay as close to Freak and in that DRS and slipstream as much as he can. Otherwise, he's going to be a sitting duck for the cars behind. He just end up going backwards. Talking of the cars behind, here's Ollie and Deagle going side by side into turn 1. This time, Deagle is already ahead before we even get into the braking zone, as Finn and Michael are going side by side as well. Michael trying to make that move again. again. This time he can't quite make it work, but on the exit of turns 1 and 2, surely this time he's got to have a move done into turn 4. He's forced his way to the inside. That's where you want to be for this corner, and surely this time this is the move for Michael. No, Flying Finn gets an awesome cutback line, and he has defended it with incredible maturity, and they're going to go side by side again through turns 5 and 6. Michael's still hanging on the outside. He's still on the inside, and now we have the outside again for the hairpin. Flying Finn and Michael both throwing everything at this race. Michael gets forced a little bit wide. Is he going to be able to go side by side into turn 9? No, he is not, and that was some incredible defending from Flying Finn there.
Yes, that was absolutely outstanding. We thought Michael had the move done, but that switchback, that throttle management, that Flying Finn. Oh, here he comes, Michael again. What a battle this is.
And they are still side by side again through turn 11. And this time the Toro Rosso will have the inside for the next corner. He'll have the inside for the penultimate corner as well. Is Michael going to be the one who goes for the cutback line this time? He's looking for it, but there's nothing to be had there. He's going to have to wait for the main straight. Flying Finn going defensive into the final corner. That's an interesting decision. You never normally see that. And yeah, he does swoop back to the outside to take the racing line just to try and maximize his exit out of the final corner, but I don't think there's going to be much he can do to challenge Michael into turn 1 here. Michael has his ERS on full here. Surely this is the one into turn 1. Again, Flying Finn not covering the inside as ahead of them. Ollie's looking back down the outside of Deagle Killer. He's still on the outside. He's got the inside for turn 2 as well, and he's made it stick. What a move around the outside of turn 1 for Ollie D, and that is a stunning move from the Season 14 champion who gets his way back up into P3, and in all of that, Michael got ahead of Flying Finn as well. Apologies for missing that one, but there are just so many battles going on in this race, it's almost impossible to keep up with it. It's awesome, awesome entertainment.
Absolutely. Well, Bahrain has delivered again so far, but Big C, unfortunately, with the inferior tyre wear, has been caught and passed by Curly Whirly, so he's down to 8th position with RC Alonso now approaching, so he may be finishing in 9th, but still be a good point score for him. But yes, I mean, the battle for the top 4, but you know, Ollie and Deagle, if they can stop battling for a few minutes, they may yet be able to catch Epic by the end, because he's now done 17 laps on those mediums, which is more than anyone else.
That's a crazy number, considering we still have 5 and a bit laps to go in this race. He's going to have to eke out those medium tyres quite a lot. I'm not sure, actually, whether Ollie and Deagle know at this point that they are still within net P2 here, simply because of Freak's 6 seconds worth of time penalties. So they have to be careful that they don't battle too much, that they fall out of that window, and that even if they overtake Epic Gamer, they still won't be in the net lead of this race. But here we go again into turn 1. This time we'll go on board with Deagle Killer. He's going to move to the inside. Ollie being a little more passive, it seems, there. I think, again, he was just consigned to his fate that time. Didn't really fight it, and I think Deagle was just so close that on that occasion there really wasn't anything that Ollie could do about it.
Yes. I completely agree there, but maybe they realise that Epic Gamer's having problems if they have the full track map available. Epic's losing half a second a lap to Freak now, and the gap between 2nd and 3rd is now just 2.5 seconds. But you know, Epic's just got to keep going, but you know, it's just, he seems to have got the fuel under control. But I don't think he's had more than 30% battery for about 10 laps now,
which is a very tough situation to be in. I can imagine mentally trying to manage the ERS as well as driving as fast as these guys are is incredibly challenging, and probably very wearing as well. So as we come towards the end of this race, maybe we'll see a few more mistakes from some of these drivers. But if you look at the gap to the leader from all of these guys, at the moment we have Freak finishing in a net P4 because he has 6 seconds worth of time penalties, despite being comfortably in the lead of this race. Again, we saw this in Australia. He was the first person to cross the line, but I think finished off the podium because of the penalties. And if the situation stays the way it is, he's looking at a very unnervingly similar fate. It's almost a carbon copy of what happened in Australia, but the difference is here, he has 5 lap fresher tyres than Freak behind. He has, I think, 2 lap fresher tyres than Deagle and Ollie, so he should have an advantage to be able to push out as much as possible. But at the moment, that gap isn't going over 6 seconds, and they are not going away, so Freak really has to worry.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what could be a saving grace is if, you know, Epic Gamer is just getting slower and slower, and he could hold up Deagle and Ollie right at the end of the race, which might give Freak just a sniff of getting that 6 seconds he needs to win this race. But yeah, Epic, I think he's finished in terms of his tyres, because he's lost half a second again, over 3 seconds behind. Now the gap between 2nd and 3rd is now 2 seconds. So at this rate, Deagle and Ollie will catch Epic Gamer before the end of the race.
And that's going to get very interesting. And they have to be very careful not to lose all that time that they've worked so hard to gain, because they might not know that they're in with a shout of winning this race because of Freak's penalties, and they might not know that they have such a fine margin to work with, and that even the smallest amount of time they lose battling will be enough for Freak to claim victory in this race. It is balanced on a knife edge as we're on lap 26, about to start lap 27 of this incredible Bahrain Grand Prix. We've had such an awesome show under the floodlights. This track always delivers year in, year out. We've had an incredible race here every single season we've visited this track, and tonight has been no different, not one bit, and it looks like it's going to get even better as we're about to start lap 27 here. Ollie D still right on the back of Deagle Killer. The gap is 4.5 tenths. Is it enough for Ollie to go from move into turn 1? He's turned up the ERS. He's in the slipstream. He's got his DRS open as well, looking to the inside for turn 1. Deagle goes defensive. Oh, they almost hit into turn 1. Deagle very aggressively moving late on the brakes, and Ollie clatters the curb on the inside, but forces his way through. And I am so glad that did not end in tears, because it looked so close between Ollie and Deagle in the braking zone, and it would have taken just millimeters difference for Ollie to have been caught out by that late move by Deagle, but they both managed to get their way through, and that's now Ollie back up into P3, and he's still right on the edge of being in touch with Freak here. He needs to be within 6 seconds to have a chance of winning this race, and it is almost, he's just by like a quarter of a tenth of a second within that gap. This is just crazy.
I know, it's going all the way. Freak cannot afford to get any more penalties now, or he will lose the victory here to Epic Gamer, who, thanks to that battle, has actually now got the gap back up to 2 seconds. He was falling away. And quietly, Alex, with the alternate strategy of the mediums to the softs, he's now into the points in 10th position.
I think he will likely have been looking for a little bit more than 10th place actually in this race, seeing as he had such a disastrous race in Australia. To be only 10th here probably doesn't ease the salt in the wounds that much, simply because he's so used to being right at the front of the grid. So to be down fighting for the lower end of the points and qualifying way outside the top 10, both of the races we've had so far, must be mentally quite a challenge for him. But as we have started the penultimate lap of this race, this battle for P3, we don't know yet whether it's net P2 or even the net lead yet. So as Ollie goes defensive again into turn 1, these two are still battling. They are costing themselves so much time. There's a bit of contact between the two of them, and again Ollie comes out on top here and maintains P3, but that battling is going to stop them, or is going to prevent them from fighting Epic Gamer for second place. Surely is Michael going to send it down the inside? No, he's not. They almost have a huge concertina effect into turn 4 and run into the back of each other. They just about managed to avoid that, and this is going to be touch and go as to whether they can get within that 6 seconds they need to challenge Freak for the lead. I don't think they will now. Ollie is 6.6 behind the lead, but Epic Gamer is still 7 tenths within that gap. I think Freak must know that the guys behind have no penalties. He's got to be pushing like crazy to try and find 7 tenths on the final lap of this race. I don't think Ollie and Deagle can win this from here.
Well, yeah, I mean, they've got to get past Epic and hopefully, but they're just battling each other so much. That's ultimately what's going to cost them. They've been fighting for 3rd place when it could be the race victory, but I think it's looking good for Freak now. But Epic Gamer, well, he's been so slow the last few laps, and you know, this might be 1 lap too many. He's done 21 laps now on the, and it'll be number 22, so actually 23 by the end if he can make it. Just outside DRS range, so he may yet survive. He's got to try and not lose 4 tenths in a lap to win this race.
This is nail-biting stuff as we start the final lap of this Bahrain Grand Prix. Again, Ollie's having to go so defensive to the inside to try and avoid a move from Deagle, but I don't think there's anything he can do about this as Deagle and Michael, is it going to be 3 wide into turn 1? Almost, as Mercedes on the outside, Deagle on the inside. They are battling right to the death here. Surely there's going to be contact. Oh, Ollie picks up a 3-second time penalty. He was forced to cut the corner at turn 2, and it's going to be 3 wide into turn 4. Michael having to go down the middle of both of them. Surely this can't end well. Michael trying to look for a cutback. The Flying Finn did so well to him earlier in the race, and him and Deagle are going to be side by side through turns 5 and 6. Deagle on the outside, Michael on the outside for the next corner. Will have the inside for turn 8. Ollie trying to get involved as well. He's trying to find any gap. Deagle, Epic Gamer has a puncture from 2nd place in the net lead. Epic Gamer has a puncture, and that's going to cost him victory here. It's going to cost him 2nd place. It's going to cost him a good result in this race. Michael, in all of that, has overtaken 2 cars, got past Epic Gamer because of a puncture, and finds himself now up in P2, but Ollie is right behind him as they're coming into turn 11. Michael surely's got to go defensive here. Ollie might send it. He's not going to. He's going to wait surely for the final corner. That will be his last opportunity. Oh, and Deagle, it's all kicking off here. I think Deagle might have a puncture as well. No, he doesn't. He is surviving. Ollie sends it down the inside of the penultimate corner. He's side by side with Michael. They are going to finish this race neck and neck almost. Again, Michael goes side by side. Freak crosses the line now. He's going to have that 6-second advantage. Freak will win this race, but let's look at this battle for second place. Ollie and Michael are still side by side. Surely Ollie can't get him up to the line. It's going to be so close. It's going to be neck and neck across the line, and Michael takes it at the death. What a race. In all of that, Freak managed to pull out that 6 seconds that he needed. I think he comfortably had that gap in the end, but that was one of the most incredible finishes to a race I have ever seen.
Oh, Epic Gamer, one lap too many. Oh, so gutted for him. It just died. The tyre just gave up as he went through the S's, and that was it. There was nothing left, and I think he had with no grip, I think he may have collected Finn in the final sector. I think that's why Finn has a damage wing, but Finn, finishing 5th in the end. But yeah, wow. I mean, I thought the race I covered earlier was incredible, but that was unbelievable.
Right, remember to breathe, everyone. That race was so close. I was convinced for the majority of that final stint that Freak had no chance whatsoever of winning that race. He had to put out 6 seconds on the fastest drivers on the PS4 platform and somehow managed to do that, which is, to me, seems absolutely incredible. So there are your podium finishes. It is Freak who wins the Bahrain Grand Prix after disappointment of finishing first in Australia but then being relegated due to penalties. He had penalties again today, but he managed to make it work. He pulled out a big enough gap in the end to take victory, and it is Michael, the winner from last time out in Australia, who will remain the championship leader, I believe, with a stunning couple of last lap overtakes and great opportunism shown right at the end there to grab P2, and a very solid P3, have to say, from Deagle Killer, who was involved in battles that entire race. But wow, hats off to all of the drivers there. If you want to run us through that crazy final grid order, Mark.
Yeah, so despite those time penalties, it is Freak who takes his first victory of the season for Mercedes. And Michael, following up on his Australia result, didn't look like he would be on the podium earlier on, but he finishes 2nd, so a great start season for him. Deagle finishes in 3rd, getting his first podium season. Ollie in 4th, then Flying Finn continuing his impressive start. The 13-year-old taking 5th place. Curly Welling 6th. Epic Gamer, well, it was an epic pole position, but my goodness, he did not want the race to end like that, but the tyre just gave up, and 7th was the best he could get. Then it's RC Alonso in 8th, Big C in 9th, picking up points, Alex in 10th from outside the top 10, and then Synthetics, the reigning champion, not able to get into the points. Then Palm, Flores, Jay Fawn, Alberto, Yano, and Danny MG and Nardi, your only 2 retirements in the race.
What a race, what a race. But I have to say, my overriding feeling after you crossed the line there was just, I felt so sorry for Epic Gamer. He drove that race so well from pole position. He probably pushed too hard in the opening stint, pitted too early, and he paid the price for that on those medium tyres. It was looking so good for him at the time, and I think at the time he got that puncture, he was probably in that 6-second range of winning that race, which is just, oh my goodness. I wouldn't even be able to comprehend what happened if he'd have won that race from 6 seconds behind. Crazy stuff.
I know. All I got to say is whoever's coming up with the highlight package, good luck.
Yeah, we could have an hour-long highlights package. There was just racing from start to finish, and I could happily do that all over again. That was just so fun to watch. I hope all of you watching enjoyed that as well. I'm not sure whether we're doing driver interviews or not. I'm not really sure how we go about doing that on Discord. I don't know whether you are.
Yeah, I think that's something we need to figure out, the technical side of it. So we'll try and get that for next week.
Yeah.
Although I think Epic Gamer might be inconsolable, so probably good thing we don't have to speak to him right now.
Poor guy.
He's probably going to be a bit Bottas from Russia or Baku after that.
Well, it's just a part of league racing. We've all been there before, but I think that will probably do it for tonight's stream. Thank you all very much for watching. Thank you very much to all of the drivers for putting on such an awesome show. Make sure you now go and tune in to the PC race, which I believe has already started, and then Xbox from 9 PM as well. That's only the start of tonight's racing. You've still got plenty more to watch, probably right the way through till well after 10 o'clock tonight. But as I said, thank you very much for watching. Thank you to Mark for joining me in the commentary box.
Oh yeah, absolute pleasure tonight. I mean, AOR have put on an absolute clinic tonight, and I'm sure, to be honest, given the nature of the track, the other leagues to come tonight will be just the same.
Thank you all for watching, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.